The time is 6 p.m., so I would like to call to order the Norwood City School District Board of Education Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 6th. Mrs. Camphouse, would you call the roll, please?
Present.
Present.
Present. If you would please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 3 on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. I would like to motion to adopt. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Camphouse?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, with that approved, we can move on to our discussion items, number 4 on the agenda. And tonight we have Mr. Mark Gabbard, principal of Norwood High School. So, Mr. Gabbard, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you for having me. Transition to high school has been very nice. Staff is very welcoming, and things seem to be coming along very well. And we just want to talk about some of the things that have been going on and what's been happening here at Norwood High School. The picture here is we have our PBIS team. They have some incentive programs that they have, one for attendance, one for great behavior, and we have a system that's on an app where teachers can, a student does well, they can give them points, and they gather so many points, they come down, they pick from a plethora of prizes, snacks, drinks, and those types of things. And this is really taken off. Where we started off with maybe 10 or 15 kids, we've got 40, 50, 60 now. It just keeps growing. So things are really kind of taken off with that. And it's helped out with kids getting on time a little bit better with attendance, as well as their grades and paying attention in class. As for the course of study, I know we're going to talk about that in a bit, but basically with our Prep for Success and quantitative reasoning classes, we've basically updated that language to have a better course description for that, meeting up with state standards as well. The older description was a little outdated. Some of the additions, Hope Squad, which is an incredible group of kids that we have, they have had a handful of reports that they've reported, which has been good. And it's been very helpful, and nothing too serious, but it was they've had that training, they know what to look for, and it was just very helpful to have teens helping other teens. This year, as part of the additions to the course of study, we were looking towards the possibility of it being a class added as a course description. In other districts, they have this for a credit. And so we're looking at what it takes for that certification for that particular teacher and that process, but we wanted to get a course have it. And then we also updated our honors diploma in order to have that updated with the new state standards. Class meetings, each quarter we have a meeting with each grade level, and we discuss things as grades, expectations, graduation requirements, SEALs and pathways. We talk about prepare for success, our honors diploma, and that also has not just our administrators in there, but the teachers bringing them in, but we also have our counselors in there, and we have conversations that continue that they have regularly with each of the students in each grade level to make sure that we're on pace and doing what we need to do. Here's an idea of what it takes to have your 20 credits to graduate. I think everybody's pretty familiar with that. Our Norwood High School math team, I could talk about each and every department. I know my time is limited, but we have some new things in math, and I really wanted to share this. And working with our county liaison, Ms. Marcini and Mr. Packer, they've been really working on some new initiatives here. So Algebra 1 lab, we had some students that struggled with Algebra 1 their freshman year. As 8th graders, the ones that took that, they did very well. In the past, the scores necessarily weren't as high as we'd like them to be. So what we did was we created this lab, and they've done it in the past. And in the past, what would happen is students would just get put in there. because they didn't pass the OGT. What we're looking at and changing is getting those kids that were on that bubble, that have that potential and willingness to work towards that. So we get them in that lab, and we've already seen some increases in the scores with MAP. We're thinking about working having a geometry lab next year, because geometry is one that traditionally on the report card across the state is a struggle. So we thought seems to be working out pretty well. We'll see how it goes this year and next, and maybe in the future add a geometry lab as well. Our computer science and quantitative reasoning classes, this is a part of a 4-year plan, and this creates pathways for students to transverse depending on their post-high school goals. So these students are working with their counselors to educate them, and they're educating these students and showing them different pathways that they could take, and then also the benefits of taking Algebra 2 and pre-calc. So we're trying to get more kids on that line. Our math team is a good group of educators. They're constantly working. They're not just working on that Thursday TBT. They're working through the week. And some of the standards of mathematical practice is listed here, listed in the state. But you know, their big part is making sense of that problem, problem solving, reasoning, and abstract thinking. They really want to focus in and have that precision, so that it makes sense and that they can build that structure. So a part of that quantitative reasoning, they've been doing some really cool activities. They've done a bungee jump, and they had to calculate from that bungee that they make, you know, with the weight on the end of that, if it comes down. So on our balcony in our lobby, they hang it over, and they have to calculate and make those calculations come down so that it doesn't hit, so that it comes down as close to the ground as possible without hitting it coming back up. Building a catapult, planning a road trip, and this is all the planning pieces that come involved with that. Buying a car and a house. And Miss Castellanos' class this past week, they just finished up a unit on buying a house and all the fees that come in that, and had guest speakers come in and talk to them about the different fees and hidden fees that are in there and that process. And then also remodeling a classroom, from painting to remodeling it. So they have to go into all the costs and measurements and everything like that too. The kids really seem to enjoy the class. They're digging it. And the ones that have struggled in math before are really taking off. Computer science, discrete math. These are other calculations and things that they work through. And the kids are, it was slow at first, but they're starting to catch on and grasp the concept and doing really well. And then our algebra lab, which I mentioned before, that's supporting these students for fun engagement, considering that mathematical to grow all students. Our goal is 100% of the students will get there and pass that OGT, but at the same time, getting 100% of our students to understand that math and have fun with it. Talk a little bit about attendance. Middle school, high school, traditionally, you know, parents have the PTAs and everything in elementary, PTOs. When you get to middle school and high school, attendance seems to drop a little bit just because of their age. They're old enough, you let them go and get them some freedom. But we've been doing some really good things and working hard on that. And you can see that, you know, kids are able to do their missing work if they're out. They can get on Canvas and get on Google and do their work. Behavior trends. This was a trend that we just kind of looked at. You know, your freshman year, they're kind of getting used to everything and this and that. And it isn't necessarily anything negative, but there was a lot of those. And what I want to get to is the skips and skip classes, excessive tardies. So what we did was we implemented a first, we had 4 minutes between each bell. So we implemented the first week coming back from Christmas break, a warning bell. And that warning bell is a different sound than the regular bell. So it makes a bong, and at the end of the, you know, when you need to be in class, it makes that bong, but this one's like boom, boom.
Like at the
Like
theater.
1 minute, yes.
Tells you to go sit down.
1 minute, and it's so interesting. I can't tell you how many students have said, "Thank you for putting that bell in." Oh my goodness! And you can see them here where they come together and like talk to their friends, like, "Hey, how's it going?" This and that, and then boom, boom, they're like, "Oh, gotta go," and they start moving. And it has drastically gone down from those, you know, referrals from kids showing up late to class or what have you. So that is That has helped tremendously. And we look at each and every day, we're looking at that data in Aubrey and seeing what we can do differently to help with that. Percentage of behaviors, these are students, the percentage of students without any referrals whatsoever. But if you look at students with one or less, these percentages go up drastically. This is kind of like incidents over time from beginning of the year to the end. You can see as we kind of got used to Mr. Gabbard coming in and his way of doing things, getting used to that and getting the staff involved in that process. And basically what that is communicating. That's making sure we're contacting parents, we're letting them know what's going on. And then as you see, as the year goes along, that goes down. Usually in December, it spikes back up. And every building, and I've been doing this for 17 years now, it always spikes back up in January, and it hasn't. It's came back down. When you have extended breaks, that's usually when you see a lot. What we really encouraged at Norwood High School is we want students to walk in. We had 2 new students come in yesterday, and I explained to those students and their mother, I said, our goal here is to have your student feel comfortable coming in, know that they're going to have some fun, they can be themselves, and learn. That's the whole process. And what we're really pushing is for students to get involved. So that's, we have student surveys that we put out, and we get their input. We get surveys from the teachers as well, and we talk with those students and teachers to see what would be the best interest there and what would be a little bit more fun to add to their day. We have class officers. Our athletics is moving and grooving, especially with the new gym floor. The teams and coaches coming in are just flabbergasted how beautiful that floor is. Our fine arts program, for being a small district, our fine arts program is spectacular. And the offerings that are there are amazing. We have our clubs, our PIP, Saga, and Hope Squad. We have advisory challenges where we have advisories take on a challenge and we calculate the points. And then at the end of each particular quarter, we have an advisory through the PBIS team. We have an advisory like benefit or reward. The students that have calculated so many points over the quarter, I think end of the second quarter, we did a musical bingo. So if you could name that tune, then you put that down on your bingo card, and we had bingo and prizes for the kids and stuff, and they just had a blast. We had it down in cafeteria towards the end of the day, and they had an absolute blast with it. They actually want to do that one again. We have other ideas, but that's one they want to do again. And then we have avenues for success. So we have over 50 clubs, differences, and we've got a little over 70 kids, I believe she said, in these clubs throughout the week. And many of the kids, they're not just in one club, they're in several, and they really enjoy that. Our extracurriculars, some of the things that's coming up, orchestra is preparing for their record performance in Nashville, and our concert for 6th to 12th grade is March 12th at 7 p.m. They will be working on a chamber unit as well with small groups of students singing songs and playing their own to play throughout the halls during the Fine Arts Festival. Winter sports, we are wrapping up towards the end of the winter season, and yesterday was our girls varsity basketball senior night. Wednesday is the boys basketball senior night. It's also parent-teacher conferences for the high school. And Thursday night is right after school bowling senior night and then wrestling senior night. So being the principal, I feel like it's a necessity to be at those, and I'm happy to be at those. And then we also have our musical and our play coming up, and they're focusing on fairy tales. And it's an interesting thought. They thought this would be good to do. They're toying with the idea of going to the elementaries and performing. What that would include is having them miss quite a bit of class in the afternoons during testing month. So we're going to try to have that more towards, at the middle school and have elementaries come to us. But it's basically a fairy tale that has the wrong characters in particular scenes. And the kids are going to enjoy it. They're going to get the list out of those fairy tales to the elementaries so they can read stories about it. That way they're in tune to what's going on and having a little fun. We have our ACT boot camp Thursday, the 15th, and Thursday, February 22nd, and that's for all juniors. Then we're going to have our ACT on February 27th, so getting them prepared for everything. FAFSA's open And our Norwood Scholarship applications went out yesterday. I sent out an email to each and every parent of students that are eligible for those. Last year, our Norwood Scholarship Committee, which I'm a part of, we gave out $275,000 in scholarships. And that's just from our alumni. So our students are greatly benefiting from that. They're able to bank that money and save it if they don't need to use it all at that one particular year. They can also reapply. And this past year, we actually had someone in their doctorate program reapply. That was just, and they asked us what we thought. We're like, absolutely. And that's another, depending on how many kids reapply, which they have to have a 3.25 or higher in college, that is anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000. So that's a great benefit for our kids as well.
Actually, Mark, I hate to interrupt you, but those are elementary parents over there, so I think they need to be made aware of that.
Yes.
All of our seniors who go to college, they get scholarships from the Scholarship Foundation.
And separate from that, we have 2 full rides. One's the Bob Longhorn Scholarship, and Susan Weiss, I can never pronounce her name, Weisty. I apologize if I'm messing that name up, but there's 2 scholarships, and the Bob Longhorn is a 4-year full ride to University of Cincinnati. And if you're living down there, everything's paid for. Yeah, it's very nice. I think last year the most a kid got was, we had 33 kids last year that were eligible, and this year we have 41. And we have, I want to say there's 80 something scholarships that are given out. So the most a kid got last year from that was like $15,500, and the least a kid got was probably $9,500, if I can think correctly. But that's a lot of money, especially if you're, UC Blue Ash. We have our connections there. That's very helpful with tuition help there. You can use that money for 2 years and bank that, and then work, and then make that extra money up for the next year. So it encourages kids to keep going and have money as a non-issue. Our pass to the second semester courses, we're saying if they pass those those opportunities are there to improve their second semester grades. So if they're doing that, our goal is trying to promote these kids to take the OGT serious. And if they do well on this is a possibility they can raise their grade. Not only raise their grade, they have the content down, and also work with their grade towards the end of the semester for those credits, as we had talked about earlier with what's required. I just mentioned that. That awards assembly, by the way, if you'd like to come and watch it, it's about 2.5, 3 hours long, because there's a lot of scholarships. But it is really neat to watch, and that award assembly is Thursday, April 25th at noon in our Norwood Middle School auditorium. All right, and that's all I have. Thank you very much. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Mr.
Any
Gabbard.
questions
Any
or
questions?
comments?
I'm really glad you're putting the Hope Squad on there as a class. That reminded me of one of the sessions I went to at Capitol Conference where the school had an art teacher, and I know this is different, but it just reminded me of this. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's like this. She started having students come in to help the special needs students who were also in that class. And then she created a whole class out of that, and they got credit. And then these people were inspired to go work in special needs, to get special needs education degrees later. And I'm like, ooh, if Hope Squad becomes a class, these people will get inspired to be therapists and to do other social things, or to be teachers, or hey, and if your art teacher says, hey, I want people to come in and help out with the kids.
Yeah,
I know a school that made that a class.
We have a PE class called Peoples, and it works with students
I
that
saw
struggle
that.
with mobility and such. And they work with those kids. High school students take that as a class, and they work with those students all year long. And it's incredible to see.
So the students taking the class get a credit, and then the peer students get a credit?
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yes.
The same. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. Both my boys took advantage of that, and they loved it. Yeah.
And were they inspired to do special needs education class?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anything else?
Mr.
Jim?
Gabbard, I love the fact that we've added algebra lab and are thinking about doing, and I would fully support doing the geometry lab as well. I mean, math is a tough subject, and a lot of kids just have a hard time visualizing, grasping that subject. And when you do it in a lab setting, as opposed to just more of a traditional class, and you get to see it in a different way, so you're given something, and then you have to make it something else, or you have to do something with that and transpose it. You know, you don't realize that you're doing the math until after you do the activity, and then you break it down and you go, oh, that's what fractions and division is all about, right? You know, this is what finding the x really means. And I think just having that visual, I could totally see how that would just do nothing but improve our scores.
And the teachers love it as well. They
Oh
really
yeah,
do.
it's a different way to
They
teach.
get into it.
So
Yeah.
Montessori of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They could maybe go down to the Montessori room, and if they've got some of those, I've seen some of the math Montessori tools are really intense, and anybody of any age could use them.
So we've actually talked in the math group of the possibility. Mr. Packer was telling me, because he works mainly with math, he was telling me that they've actually talked about that. We have English working with coming down and reading and doing reading skills with the Montessori from our high school, and we're talking more about how can math get involved with that, and even eventually get that to science as well. So,
Yeah,
Oh,
'cause
100%.
Montessori has some
Yeah.
super awesome math tool things.
you know, when I was a junior and senior, we had teen counselors, and our juniors and seniors would take. We had a study hall, they called it back then, but in that study hall, we basically went over a curriculum with an educator, and we were paired up in groups of two, and we went to all the sixth grade classes that was in the middle school at the time, where it is now. And we went to those classes, and we did a little 30-minute lesson with those students. And it was one of the things that I recall, yeah, I think I can do this, you know, and talking with the kids and having that person that they can go and talk to, and not just from the lesson side of it, but it was social skills, it was emotional skills, but it was also a point of, I know that high school kid, you know, and I played football, so they see me on the field, or you know, they see me playing baseball. They see the cheerleaders, they see the other people that are in drama in the band, and they say, I can do that, and they see those older kids, and it's like, that's something I want to do. And that's the whole idea, is to make this, you know, the village raises the kids, and it's a big piece of it. It's bringing that family aspect in.
Anything else, Mr. Gabbard? All right.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for coming.
Thank you.
All right, moving on in our agenda, item 5, this is personnel, superintendent recommendations, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Mrs. Ronan.
Thank you, Madam President. Under employment, item number 1, we would like to welcome Benny Gutierrez Silva. He is going to be our new maintenance person at Sharpsburg, because, you know, we've lost Steve Shira. So we are just delighted and that Benny is with us. Then under item number 2, as you can see under pupils activity contracts, we are hiring for the spring. And we're also starting to hire our football coaches for the next school year and season. So that's really, and on the next page, there's an avenues for success, staff site, because Mrs. Ferguson is still hiring some staff because of all the clubs and locations that she's at. So that's all I have this evening. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Okay.
Is that our RSO that's going to be the tennis coach?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Cool. Does he?
Mm-hmm. He tried educating me a little bit at senior night, but he was not successful. So. All right, moving on, item 6, this is our Education Committee report, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Rarica.
Thank you, Madam President. First, we have our 2024-25 program of study, which we saw Mr. Gabbard tell us a little bit about and what has changed, the Hope Squad, and a little bit of state standard changing. I noted that we have 11 AP classes, and we also have 2 college credit program classes, and, well, maybe 3, 2 English ones and an engineering. Also, our kids can take classes at college. Also, they can go to Scarlet Oaks. They have so many different opportunities for them. Another class that I saw that I thought that is just so neat was a class about small business management. And I was like, whoa, heck yeah. Great. So, everybody take a look at it. It looks super fun, and you will be astounded at how many programs we offer. There are so many things you'll see. We do that? What? This is amazing. Because it's amazing. And then next we have student field trips. Norwood View is going to the Museum Center. Sharpsburg is going to Green Acres and the Zoo and the Nature Center. And the Silhouettes have lots of schools they need to go to for their competitions. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Rarica. Continuing on in the agenda, item 7, this is Policy Committee. Mr. Taylor is not with us, so I will turn it over to his backup, Mr. Atwood.
Thank you, Madam President. So we have one item, but there's 2 subcategories. So this month we'll be doing the second reading for the OSBA resolution. It's not necessarily a policy by itself, but we're doing a resolution to work with the OSBA so they can go through our entire policy manual, which is about 3 miles thick, and switch out all of or recommend us changing all of the nomenclature from the State Board of Education to the new department. So, yeah. So to have them do it all at once, so that way we don't have a zillion different policy things to. It's kind of nice. And then this month, so that'll be the second reading. As soon as we do that, we'll pass that resolution. They can get to work. This month, we'll also be doing the first reading and for revisions for 3 different policies: the co-curricular and extracurricular activities policy, the interscholastic athletics policy, and the public conduct on district property. For a quick recap on what those entail, I would like to turn it over to Mrs. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Atwood. These are piece of cake policies this month in comparison to what we've done. So the first 2 policies about extracurricular activities and the interscholastic athletics, just one word change. We've updated and removed the word academic in reference to home education. It's just in line with any of the laws that passed previously and any other policy updates we've made previously. And the last one, that public conduct on district property policy, the changes are all due to issue 2 for that. So we've updated our own policy to clearly prohibit marijuana, as well as calling out other substances that we don't want in our schools or on our grounds in any of our property that we own. So those are the 3 policies for the first reading for this month.
So the policies are attached to the agenda, including the resolution. So if there are any concerns about any of the changes being made, of course, we're just doing the first reading, so those won't go into effect until after the second reading. So there's plenty of time for people that if they do have any questions or concerns about the policy, bring them up. We move through that process. That's all I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atwood. Mrs. Chesson. All right, moving on, item 8, this is building and grounds. Ms. Ballard is not here. Do you want to do this, Mrs. Rarica, or do you want?
Sure. We have the Norwood Not Hell will need Shea Stadium for their opening day, April 6th.
All right. All right, item 9 on the agenda, this is Finance Committee, and I will turn it over to our treasurer, Mrs. Camphouse.
Thank you, Madam President. The financial reports are attached to the agenda for your review and approval next week. 9.02, our appropriation resolution, our current budget. 9.03, special education contracts. 2 contracts for new student placements to meet IEP goals. 9.04, the OHSAA membership, our typical membership for the 24-25 school year. 9.05, ELA purchase. These are pilot material costs for the new ELA curriculum selected by our ELA textbook committee. The curriculum is listed on the state of Ohio's new ELA approved curriculum listing. 9.06, accept the bid for tractor. 2 bids were received and the highest bid was $1,201. The tractor has been picked up and is no longer on our asset list. 9.07, resolution to challenge commercial tax values. To challenge 2 commercial properties whose current value is much lower than their current sales price of the property. I'll have a resolution for the board to approve next week on that. 9.08, resolution to consider bids for Sharpsburg primary and elementary beautification projects. The bid opening is February 13th, and we hope to see several contractors and some competitive bidding. And that is all I have for finance.
Thank you, Mrs. Campos. All right, moving on to our agenda, we are at item 10, which is executive session. In accordance with ORC 121.22G81, the information is directly related to a request for economic development assistance that is to be provided or administered under the statute set forth in Revised Code 121.22G81, or involves public infrastructure improvements or the extension of utility services that are directly related to an economic development project. I would like to motion that we go into executive session. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Camphouse?
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes. All right, the time is 6:32. We are now in executive session. 3, we are back to open session. Item 11 on the agenda is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. The time is 6:54.